The body is an amazing thing. It can truly heal itself. It can, as long as you give it everything that it needs, and that's a proper balance of everything. But we're going to talk about how the body heals specifically through energy healing, even more specifically through sound. I'm not talking about ultrasound. I'm talking about pure sounds, vibration in the air. And she's somebody that has harnessed that. Her name is Barb Sounds, and she helps heal people all the time. Welcome back, Barb.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to be back.
Yeah, it's good to have you here. We talked a little bit last time about the body healing and how it does it. So we're going to go a little bit deeper this time.
Well, last time I told the story of my spontaneous locking tailbone healing. But I think there's a couple more stories that can kind of more pinpoint, like you were saying in your introduction, what actually are the conditions that we need? Because, I don't want to lead people. We don't want to lead people into thinking that, if they can come and take a sound bath and things will magically happen. Things do magically happen, but like you said in your intro, that the conditions have to be right. And I think one of our problems, especially in North America here, is that and I've talked about this before, is that we're really disconnected from our body, and we have a mind, right? So at the same time as our body is feeling things, our mind is feeling things, and our mind is thinking things. So we may have something, a condition, could be an emotional condition or a physical or spiritual or whatever. We have a condition that's bothering us and we really just don't want it. We want it to be gone. Well, there's lots of things that we cannot get gone permanently, as anybody who's done therapy knows. You have to kind of learn to adapt. But I think sometimes, like, we get mad at our body for not doing something right, or being sick, or there being something wrong with our body, and then we get anxious and we get like all stressed out, and then that in turn, like, it creates just a revolving door, because then when our mind is kind of like not that happy with our
Hmm.
body, then the body gets all tensed up, right? And then the
It's
mind
a
gets more tensed.
it's a cycle too, because if you have an issue with your body, you're not happy about it, and then you get stressed out because now you have to deal with it. It just makes things worse. It's like that cycle goes around over and over again.
There's that. Yeah. I mean, one of the beautiful things about sound healing is that it actually relaxes your body and your mind at the same time. So, like, if you go for a massage, let's say, if you're a pretty relaxed person, then the massage will be really, really useful.
Mm.
But if you're really stressed and really anxious, then nothing that massage person, yeah, I mean, I'm not knocking massage people because they're great, right? So they can relax your body only so much. And I know I've had, massages in the past where I walked out feeling just awesome and amazing. And by the time I got home, I was all stressed out again, because the stress
Yes.
of my mind never ended. And my body just went, oh yeah, shit, right. Ooh, clench up. Right.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's
Absolutely.
and that's what happens. So I think those two things, have to work in tandem. And lots of our illnesses and things that we have, even emotional things that we want to heal, are often also dependent on patterns we had in childhood, memories, traumas. There's all those kinds of things that we have to kind of be able to let go of a little bit. So, um, and I'll give you a story to illustrate this, because sometimes it's just that our body has to be ready and our
Hmm.
mind has to be ready for that healing to happen. And so this story is goes way back to when I was just beginning to do sound healing. I don't think I even had any gongs at that point. I just had a few bowls. And I was playing around with them, and I had done a couple of sound healings with clients, but they were more into having Reiki treatments at that point in time, because nobody knew anything about sound healing. So my sister phoned me up one night and she said, "You have to come over." And we live quite close to each other. She said, "You have to come over and help my husband. This is my brother-in-law." And I said, "What's going on?" And she said, "Well, he's had like severe ongoing hiccups for like 3 days now." and his body's like all hurting and he's all anxious, and he's been to the hospital, I don't know, it was like 2 or 3 times, and they just told him to go home. They couldn't do anything. And she said, it's just getting worse and worse and worse. And I really didn't have a lot of experience in how, the sound healing works. And so I was kind of like, and I said, well, I'll come over, but like, I don't know if I'll be able to do anything. And she said, I don't care, just come over. So I took with me 2 bowls, only 2 bowls, very similar to the ones I played for you in our first podcast.
Mhm.
And I went over and he was lying on the couch and he was like this, right? And he was, practically in tears. And so I just sat down and I said, what's going on? And so he told me. And of course, then my sister and his 2 children are kind of hovering. So I said, okay, well, I'll just going to play some bowls for you and we'll try to get everything relaxed for a little bit. And so I sent his wife and his children out of the room. And we were in the living room and I put his gym mat on the floor and had him lie down on his back on it. And I put the 2 bowls on either side of his head. And then I just sat there. I turned the lights off and I sat there for probably about 20 minutes. And I just played the 2 bowls, kind of like I played them for you, like just not any pattern, but just, kind of playing them. And they were on either side of his head. And I had, did what I usually do with all my clients, which is have them take a few deep breaths at the beginning and, releasing things on the out breath and all that. And after 20 minutes, he was not hiccuping anymore. Like it completely went away.
Wow.
And it didn't come back. Like, that was, and I think in hindsight, I mean, I was thrilled, but I was actually kind of shocked. I was like, oh my gosh, how the heck did that happen? Because in those days I was just learning how, and you have to learn through experience.
How do you think it happened?
Well, I think what happened was that, when we're really stressed, our muscles all clench up. And lots of times it's our muscles in our back that clench up. I know that when I was in my early 20s, I went to emerge one time thinking I was having a heart attack because my left arm was numb and I had chest pains. And an intern examined me and then he came back in and he said, do you work? I said, no, I'm going to school. And he said, well, you just need to have more fun. There's nothing wrong with you. And I was like, what do you mean there's nothing wrong with me? I'm having a heart attack here at 20. Wow. And he said, no, he said, you're stressed. You're so stressed out that all of the big muscles that go down on either side of your spine are clenched up like Charlie horses. And he said, and they're pulling on the muscles that go around into your ribs and they're going into a spasm. And that's why you're getting chest pains, because it's muscles, coming through your ribs from your back. And he said, and your trapezius muscles, like in your shoulders, are all bunched up too. And that's why your arm is numb. And I was like, oh, so, I think so, I think what happened with my brother-in-law was he was very stressed out with various things that were happening. And I think his muscles got all tensed up and probably, he has, like some people have stress sort of in their stomach area too, right? They get upset stomach, and he's kind of prone to that. And so I think what happened was the muscles underneath his ribs just all bunched up around his diaphragm. And then they were just clenching and unclenching and clenching and unclenching. And that's what caused the hiccups. And the more that happened, and especially when he went to emerge a few times and they told him there was nothing wrong with him, was not a good thing to say to somebody. But, he was getting more and more panicked, like, okay, the experts can't fix me anymore. Like they can't make this go away. So the more afraid he got and the more stressed he got, the worse it got.
Sure. So like an
ulcer.
Like, I had an ulcer like 6 years ago and didn't know what it was, but had feelings uncomfortable. Something's up. I know something's up. And I hadn't gone to the doctor yet. And I toughed it out for probably like 4 months. And it got to the point where one day I couldn't deal anymore. It was on my birthday. I was at the beach. I'm like, I'm driving myself to the hospital. And I had to. I felt like my blood pressure from the anxiety of not knowing what it is, my eyes are going to pop through my face. And
Yeah.
exactly same thing. And the more you worry about it, the worse it's going to get.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when you can't get to sleep and then eventually and quite early on, you can't go to sleep because you can't go to sleep.
Yeah.
Like that's what you're, obsessing on and worrying about. And, I think and then he had his family around him and they were all freaked out too. So that was making him even more anxious. So, actually getting them out of the way was good, which
Mm,
is why I like to do one-on-ones with people who have like real issues that they want to deal with, because
sure.
anybody else around is just going to be a big distraction. But I think what happened, and I had put a blanket on him, so having somebody lie down, and then you turn the lights down low,
Mm,
and then you put a blanket over them, and that takes, hopefully most people, that takes them back to some kind of coziness, and so all those things were relaxing, and then also the sounds like just relaxed his body in spite of himself.
yeah.
And then the more relaxed his body got, the more the rest of him was like, oh, thank God. Like, oh, not, oh, good. Like he was thrilled, when it all happened. And I think that's,
Mm,
sometimes that's like we were talking about last time, that's the great, great power of healing, the sound. And I'll tell you
yeah.
one more story. Um, Again, I think I was a little further along in my journey of learning sound healing. I think I had a very small gong. I had a gong that was about 16 inches. So, like about this, a wind gong, and I had some bowls. And a friend of mine who is a Reiki healer referred one of her clients to me. Um, and she was about, I think the client was about 10 days out of a double mastectomy, with reconstruction from the back. So trying to sleep sitting up because she couldn't lie down on the front door of the back, drains in, the whole shebang. This particular client, she'd been trying to convince to do like meditation or yoga or something to, you know, kind of relax and be present. And the client was having like none of that. That was just like it was all woo woo stuff, right? I'm not going to do that. Anyway, so my friend said, would you do a house call? So I said, okay. So I packed my two bowls and the one little gong, and I went to her apartment. And she had sent her husband and children away, which was very smart of her, right? So it was just the two of us. And so I started, as I was unpacking and setting up, I was just, kind of explained to her how it worked, like I did in our first podcast.
Hmm.
And, so I was talking about the science part. I figured that would kind of maybe calm her down and convince her it wasn't like super woo woo what I was
Hmm.
doing. And I explained to her how the harmonics worked. And she was like super intrigued. Like, so, and that was like about 5 minutes I did that. And so by the time I started to play, she was really curious and really into seeing if something would happen. But she was also, I think by that time, she hadn't been sleeping for 10 days. She was in incredible pain, even with the medication. It's an awful state to be in, and I think that she was just ready to accept anything that was
Oh,
going to help. So I played these two bowls and this little gong for about 50 minutes, and she was just sitting up on the couch with her eyes closed. And then I like to have people just rest in the silence near the end. And so I was sort of kind of quietly packing up my bowls and my gong. And since I could hear this sort of rustling, so I kind of turned around and looked at her, and she opened her eyes and she looked at me and she said, Barb, she said, I have no pain. And I was like, what? You have no pain? And she said, yes. She said, I can't believe it, but I'm not feeling any pain right now. And I was like, well, that's great. Like, that's wonderful, And So then before, and she said, thank you. And she said, can you come again? Like in a few days. I said, sure. And I did play a number of times for her while she was recovering. But I said to her after the first time, I said, there's not a lot of research and information on, and knowledge about what sound healing does. So I said, if you can, and don't worry about it if you forget this, but if you can, when I come back in 2 days, can you tell me how long the no pain lasted? And so when I went back the second time, she said, I remembered what you asked me to. And she said, I had no pain with no medication. And I played for her at like 1:00 in the afternoon. She said, I had no pain until I went to bed, like till I went to try to go to sleep at midnight. So I had no pain from 1:00 to 12:00 at night. And the only reason that I took some pain medication was because I didn't want to wake up in the middle of the night in severe pain.
Wow.
And that was with, that was with like 2 little bowls and 1 little gong. So imagine what I can do with all these big, huge gongs I got hanging behind me and all my bowls. But I mean, again, it was a kind of, if she had have been sitting there and keeping to the rigidity, of this stuff is, I don't believe in this stuff, or I don't know how it works, so it's just not going to work, then maybe nothing might have happened. Maybe something would have happened anyway, because lots of times people think nothing's going to happen, and then they just get so relaxed that it happens, because underneath they do actually really want to let go of that,
Right.
whatever it is.
Oh, same thing with hypnotherapy. If you are not fully into healing and believing it can work, you're probably not going to be able to be hypnotized, and it's not going to work. So you have to be a believer. I want to let you know we wanted to leave time at the
We're
end
like
so you
10
could,
minutes.
so you could play.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that now?
Yeah, I would do it now.
All
Yeah.
right.
Because
Let's
every
do
time
that
we do
now.
this, we run out of time.
I know we run out of time. Okay. So I'm going to, what happened to my video?
Lost you there. Can hear you.
Yeah. It's not letting me start my video.
Hmm.
Yeah, this is not good.
I wonder why that is. Well, at least we can hear you. We're talking sound.
Okay. Well, you're not going to get to pick one of my gongs, though.
Oh, that was the plan.
I'll just have to do one.
Hmm.
Well,
But definitely tell us which one you're picking.
you know what I'm going to pick? The one that I usually start with in my sound baths.
You know
Oh,
what?
here, start my video.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know why
Okay, and
it
this
has to
is
do that,
good.
but okay, great.
Okay, this actually reminded me to turn my original sound on too. Okay. So now I'm going to, there. Whoops. Nope. Sorry about that. There we go. So you can look at those 6 gongs and tell me which one you want me to play.
I kind of let the universe do it. I didn't want to pick one out, and I just
You don't want to pick one out.
Yeah, I turned my head in, and I went right to the one that's in front of you, the one with the black outer.
This one.
That one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, this is a fun one. This gong here is called the 8 Corners of Heaven. And it was designed by Don Conroe, who is the world gong master. And I trained with him a couple of times. I was fortunate to be able to train with him twice. And he's an amazing person. He's been playing gongs and teaching people how to play gongs for 50 years. And he has incredible knowledge on all kinds of esoteric, whatever, magical things. So he's got 8 symbols on it here, kind of like in a circle. And in our training, we tried to get him to explain like what these symbols meant. And he wouldn't tell us. He just grinned and he said, it's a mystery. So nobody knows. I looked it up. I looked up 8 Corners of Heaven on the internet, and all I got was like one sentence that Don Conroe wrote about this gong. But anyway, it's a beautiful gong. It's a mirror gong, so the whole front of it is like a mirror, so I can see myself when I'm playing it. And so gong players like this kind of a gong because we always play with our backs to people. So we can't, when you're playing, especially live for people, you can't really see what's going on in the room because you're playing with your back to them. And this way, you can kind of see them in the mirror of the gong. But this gong is incredibly, incredibly powerful. You can play sacred geometry on it, like in triangles, like that. Or going up, you can play up. You can play all kinds of triangles. And my feeling when I use this gong for healing with people, I tend to play it near the end or the middle of a session because when we're energetically letting go of something, either a physical, issue or a mental issue or an emotional issue, there's a kind of a space left. And if you don't kind of smooth that space in and fill it in, then when the person goes away, sometimes, whatever was there tends to want to come back and you tend to want to let it back. And this gong, my impression of this gong is what it does is energetically, it basically just puts you all together like a jigsaw puzzle. So there's no more space, there's no more gaps, and you are now full and complete and energetically whole without whatever it is that you let go of. So it's a beautiful gong.
Wow. It is amazing how it is so calming when you do that, Barb. It's almost like you're taking a Xanax. It's
I
like
know.
the best way to describe
Instant.
it. It is. It is. Seconds
Yeah.
later, you're, you know, just chill. And then I found myself more and more like powering down, like you know what it is? Best description, surrendering. I feel like I surrendered to
Yeah.
the gong.
Yeah. You do.
It's weird.
You do. And it's like I was saying, I think one of the other podcasts, like people, even people who are super anxious when they come in, and they think they're not gonna like get relaxed. Phew, boom. Like
Hmm.
in a minute or two, everybody's just like out.
Yeah. Yeah. And
Their breathing slows down. They're like,
and
you know,
it's almost as if your mind is trying to focus on each note, then the next note hits, then the next note hits. And it's almost like I guess the best description is like psychedelic. It's almost like psychedelic where you're just like, that's good. I'm in a good spot. That feels
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
Yeah.
We are out of time. Tell everybody how they can connect with you.
Well, the best thing that I would love for anybody who's watching to do is come and try one of my sound baths. I'm doing actually open group sound baths online on the weekends, alternating Saturdays and Fridays. So I have one coming up this Saturday. So come on and join. You can go to barbsounds.eventbrite.ca and get a ticket there. Come
Wow.
and join me and come and see what it's like I play for 15 minutes. So
So
it's
cool.
pretty awesome.
It's like having a glass of wine without having a glass of wine.
That's right.
It's-
And
it's
the online stuff, even my clients who used to come in person, they're really enjoying the online because they don't have to get up and drive home. Because
yeah,
imagine if I did that for an hour and you had to get up and drive home after,
yeah, yeah. It
it's
just
a
kind
little
of ruins
challenging.
ruins the whole thing. Yeah,
Yeah, you're at home with your headphones and everything, and you
yeah,
just kind of like crawl into bed and good
yep.
to go.
Amazing, Barb. Always great talking with you, and looking forward next time to learn more, but also pick up the next gong.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. All
Thank you so
right.
much. All right, we'll be right back.